Good morning. I hope you're ready to hear all about the acoustic properties of the oboe. The most important part of the oboe and how we make all of our sound on it is using a double reed. It's a double reed because it's two reeds on top of each other. Now this reed is made out of cane, the cane plant. Then eventually the cane gets shaved down and shaped into basically a reed. And then we shave it down some more, and after sweat, tears, and a concerning amount of blood, we get this, the double reed. Now, the sound comes from the two pieces of cane vibrating against each other when you play into it. So, and when you put it into the instrument, and the sound resonates from the bell at the bottom of the instrument. The air goes through the reed all the way down here. In order to change the pitch of the sound that you make on the instrument, you push down the buttons. Pushing down each of the buttons lengthens the tube a little bit more, and that's how we get our deeper sound. So I'll show that with my favorite scale, the D major scale, because it just goes straight down the oboe, and I really like that, and I think it's a nice way to demonstrate that. And loudness on the oboe is manipulated through how much air you push through the instrument and how focused that air is. So if I wanted to play piano, I would probably, I will, blow less air and it'll be a more focused airstream. So then if I wanted to play forte, I would use a lot more air and the air still being focused, but And there's also vibrato, but that's not really part of the instrument, so I won't go into that. Now timbre. Oh, this stuff is awesome because it's all determined by the reed on top, which is why oboes hate their instrument, because reeds suck. So right now, I'm playing on quite a thick reed because that's how I really like the sound of thick reeds. It lets you produce a much richer tone. It gives you a lot more je ne sais quoi range on what you can play, so you can play super quiet but also super loud. This reed right here is a lot thinner than this reed is. I would show you in the light, but you would probably be blinded. You could see a little bit. The tip of this one is a lot whiter, which is, thinner. Now I'll show you. This is the thicker reed. This is the thinner reed. I know it doesn't sound very different, but like playing wise, this one's a lot easier to play, but also I'm not going to be able to play as loudly because since the reed is thinner, it's a lot easier to make the reed vibrate. So it kind of has, its max amount of vibration is not nearly as high as something like this. So I'll play this. It's out of tune, but that's just because I am out of tune. But do you hear, it's a little bit squeakier, and it doesn't sound, it's shallower, that's the word, and it doesn't have quite as good tone. Now I can give you a live demonstration with this. This is our reed that we're starting with. It's very thick, but if we were to shave it down a little bit, that's how we change our reeds. We shave them down. Ooh, wow, that's falling off. We shave it down. It's going to be a lot easier to play, one, because there's a lot less resistance, which is why younger players usually start on much easier reeds, much thinner reeds, and it's not going to have nearly as good tone again. So now it's even higher when I play it. Still sounds good. I thought I was gonna lose a reed. That's good. So yeah, that's how reeds work for the most part. It's a little more complicated than that, but and articulations are created through, tonguing on the reed, depending on how hard you tongue on it. With oboes, you want to have a lighter tongue, so it's not like tum tum tum, because that sounds dumb and silly. So we usually do a really light tongue no matter what we're doing. Now, if I wanted to differentiate between, say, like an accent and staccato, it would just be more or less length of air. So an accent would be like, as opposed to a staccato, which is just, I cut off early. I'm not going ta ta, I'm going ta ta. and that's how I make the difference between those two. Oh, my favorite part, the historical nature of my instrument. So, lucky for you, I've already done a presentation on this for something else, so I've got this guy here. This is called a shawm. The website I bought it from called it a bombard because it's got a little key on it, but we'll call it a shawm because that's the ancestor to the oboe. Believe it or not, even though it's a double reed instrument, I don't believe Olos, the Greek instrument, to are descendants of the oboe. It all starts with the shawm. Now, I don't know if you saw it, and I don't know if it's been soaking long enough. This is the reed. Kind of looks like a bassoon reed. The really old reeds, double-reeded instruments, were really thick. Like, the reeds were super duper thick. This is, like, a lot thicker than a bassoon reed even, which is already really thick. This is a bagpipe reed, but it'll work for our purposes. And remember, the thicker the reed is, the harder it is to make vibrate, but the more range you get. Here's what this sounds like. Sounds like garbage, right? Yeah, that's what the instrument makers thought too. So over time, they began to add some more buttons to the shawm. Check that. They also began to make it longer because obviously these are not the same length. And along that way, they also were manipulating the reed a lot, determining, wow, I wonder why this sounds so bad. So they started like shaping it, trying different things to see what would work until eventually we got the modern oboe reed. Now, before that, there's still some other oboes floating around, like there's the, I believe, Vienna oboe and the Wiener horn. They're all pretty similar to the oboe, but, there's a little wow here, or the bell is a little bit wider. Sometimes the reeds are a little bit thicker or different, but eventually we ended up with 3 different instruments: the bassoon, also contrabassoon and subcontra. We're not going to go into those. The bassoon, the English horn, and the oboe. The oboe has the thinnest reed of them all, so it's able to go up the highest because the smaller something is, the higher it goes. And that was about the 19th century that we ended up with the oboe. And I forgot to say it, but the shawm is in the 16th century, so had a few centuries until we ended up with this guy. And I think that's everything I have to share about the oboe. Thank you for listening.